You walk into a clearing in the wood, surrounded by dead trees. The ground is suddenly parched here and no grass grows, but the dead earth rises up into a great obelisk made of clay. Eldritch sigils are picked out in gems, glowing strangely, and the weak sun catches a few shards of bone. The whole thing begins to hum. What do you do? Greetings and salutations! I'm Janet from World Anvil, and today we're talking about man-made monuments and how they can spruce up your world building. Are you ready? Let's light up the forge. So whatever your world building, monuments are a great way to add exposition about the past, about past people, or about past events. You can use them to foreshadow, that is to foreshadow events that are coming in your own plot, or you can use them to add tone or mood to a book or a campaign or a movie or, whatever you're world building for. You might find them in a dungeon, you might find them in the middle of town, but in my opinion, man-made monuments are a really great way to add interest to a journey, like beyond fighting more goblins. Monuments can be an adventure, they can be an encounter in their own right. And here are a few real-world examples to get you inspired. Number 1, the Easter Island Men. There are so many reasons to love these guys. They walked, they are buried beneath the surface, and if that is not enough, they used to have little grass skirts. I know! There is a ton of detail on these bad boys that you can use to inspire your own world building. So go on, adopt a giant stone man in your world building today. So my world building takeaways from the Easter Island Men are that you might not be seeing everything in your man-made monument. The Easter Island stones might look like a bunch of talking heads, but actually a good portion of them is hidden below the surface. Look at the body on these guys. Hiding something beneath the surface is a great way to show that there's more to your campaign that meets the eye, or more to your novel that meets the eye. And it's a great way to, carry on these tones and themes through a monument. And monuments can move. Yes, the Easter Island stones have walked around the island. I freaking love this. Look at him go. Isn't this great? There is no reason why your monument should have to remain in the same place all the time. Maybe someone or something moves it every day, every season, or maybe it moves by itself. Man-made monument number 2, gosh, that's hard to say, are the OBELISK stones. Well, I know what you're thinking. I know. I said man-made objects, and that's clearly a rock. Well, looky here. That's OGAM. OGAM is an ancient Irish language that was probably developed during the Roman period in Britain. It's carved into rocks used as grave markers or memorials. What could be more awesome than a monument which doesn't look like a monument at all? Unless you can read that secret writing. So my world building takeaways from the OGAM stones are that some man-made monuments are more than meets the eye. What looks like a rock to you might be a gravestone to somebody else. It might be a mile marker. It might be telling you something. It might be a warning. And some monument styles in your world-building project might be localised. The OGAM stones are only found in certain parts of the British Isles, so unless your players and characters have local knowledge, they won't know what these things are. Localised monuments are a great way, as well, to combat the World of Warcraft regions feeling. You know, that feeling where every region breaks off in a very abrupt way and has a completely different theme. This region is my pyramid region. This region is my hell region. This region is my gnome technology region, for example. So you can use localized monuments to add tone or mood to a particular area in your world in a very subtle way, without feeling like there's an abrupt change. My third world building takeaway from the OGAM stones is that monuments can hold secret messages. I love secret messages. I love secret languages. And it's not easy to spot the writing on this. You can do some sneaky things with your protagonists. There are loads of potential plot points that you can use, from warnings to spells to, I don't know, pieces of information critical to the plot. Oh, if only they'd taken that language. Intelligence is not a dump stat. My third kind of inspiring man-made monument for your world-building projects are obelisks! Nothing screams sinister better than an obelisk, and there's so much that you can do with them. You can make them out of strange materials like obsidian or crystal. You can make them filled with eldritch signs and symbols. Or you can, like, I don't know, make them sing, make them dance, make them animate, make them float. They are tall, four-sided and narrow, at least traditionally, and they taper up into a pyramid shape on top. In the real world, they're often used as proclamations or memorial stones for events of the important and the wealthy. In fact, you often see two of them outside tombs and memorials, particularly things like the pyramids, and they are especially evocative of ancient Egypt. However, there's no reason why they can't be magical in nature, or possessed, or portals, or even conferring curses on those who get too close. So, my world-building takeaways for obelisks are this. Just because you find it there doesn't mean it belongs there. And this time I am not talking about walking statues. I am talking about theft, and this is a very uncomfortable topic. So, you know, when the Romans took Egypt from Cleopatra, yes, that Cleopatra, they made off with a lot of monuments. Some of them were treasures, some of them had shiny bits, and they carted them all back to Rome. Great modern day examples of this phenomenon are, well, let's not talk about London's British Museum, or the Louvre in Paris, or the big archaeological museum in Berlin. Yeah. So as uncomfortable as this topic is, especially if you are British, it does bring a lot of interesting dynamics to the fore between different nations, and it's absolutely something that you can play with. It can also be a very interesting symbol, again, show don't tell, to see something which obviously does not belong juxtaposed with a different kind of city. It begs a lot of questions, which can then be answered later, even asked by your protagonists. And that is a great way to deliver your world building. There's a lot of meat in this one, guys. My second world building takeaway from obelisks is that people are massively inspired by the greatness of the past. So as well as nicking the Egyptian obelisks, the Romans, well, they built their own. They were inspired by the greatness and power and a kind of immortality displayed by the Egyptian obelisks, and so they felt like building their own would convey similarly a sense of power and immortality. And they also became fashionable, which is not something to underestimate in your world building either. So think about how your cultures might invoke cultures of the past to make themselves seem more important and more permanent. My fourth inspiring man-made monument for your world-building projects are menhirs. Yes, technically these are standing stones, and these bad boys can be found all over Northern Europe. And there's something of a mystery. Some of them have a ton of detail on them, and others are just like vaguely man-shaped stones. The name menhir literally means long stones in Old English, and until recently they were associated with the Beaker people, although it seems now like they might predate them. So my world-building takeaways from menhirs are that you must not forget about the distant past. Some of the most evocative sites from our own world, like megaliths, for example, yeah, I'm looking at you, Stonehenge, are from the dim and distant past. They make your world feel lived in. They establish a sense of long history and of mystery without you having to create lots of timelines and events. It's a very quick way to show a long legacy. My second world building takeaway from menhirs is that people are most interested in people. Yes, people are obsessed with themselves. Menhirs are often decorated with megalithic art, and it's almost always human features. If we talk also about the artifacts that are found from the Neolithic sites in, for example, Malta, they are largely human figurines. Incidentally, those big obelisks also detail the stories of people. The Ogham stones mark the graves of people. The Easter Island statues are people. Despite the many cool things about the past, despite the changes and the eruptions and all the amazing things in the past, the things people are most obsessed about are themselves. And reflecting that in your monuments will feel incredibly authentic. And my fifth and final man-made monument to inspire your world building is Henge. I didn't want to talk about Stonehenge. Everyone talks about Stonehenge. But have you heard of Henge? Turns out henges were all the rage way back when, and they're not all made of rocks. So this bad boy, colloquially known as Holm 1, is a wooden circle made of 55 split trunks with an upturned tree root in the centre. Cool, huh? Ritualistic? Would I have thought of it? I would not. Am I going to use it? Hell yeah. It seems to have been built in about the 21st century BC. And actually, let's talk about that just for a second. Archaeologists have been able to deduce with some certainty not only the exact year that the trunks were cut, 2049 BC for anyone who's counting, but also that they were felled in the spring or early summer. They also know that 59 different distinct bronze axe blades were used in its construction thanks to 3D imaging. Archaeologists are freaking amazing, and anyone who says different can come and fight me. Actually, that's kind of a dangerous thing to say on YouTube. Please don't fight me. I'm small. Anyway, there's a ton of mystery surrounding these little pointy sticks of joy. Suggestions are that it might have been a mortuary enclosure, although they definitely appear to be ritual for something. Nobody knows what that might be. But here are my world building takeaways from the monument Henge. Your monument might not always be visible. Henge was covered by sea and revealed by shifting sands, hence its name. Sure, originally it was in marshland, like a salt marsh, but water changes. Seas rise. The landscape is altered over time. So the situation that your monument is in might have changed as well. Or maybe it was designed to always be that way, only visible by the moon, only visible when the sun falls at a particular angle, or maybe when the planets align, or when realities touch once in a million years. Anyway, situations can change, and that can add extra elements of interest to a monument, which can be really cool. It can also introduce time pressure to a plot or a story, which is a great way to intensify the action. So this is a good one to remember for all of you plot writers out there. My second takeaway for world building from Henge is that monuments can cluster. We always consider a monument to be a single tree, standing alone, tall, noble, kind of lonely, nobody to call on a dark night. But that's not always the case. Holm 1 has a friend. It's another circle of wood about 100 meters east. It predates it by a couple of centuries, and it's known as Holm 2. Very original, the naming on these things. Your monument might have an associated site. It might have a missing piece. It might even be part of a larger structure. Maybe your protagonist just can't see the wood for the trees. Seriously, I am sorry. I have a problem. So my third world building takeaway from Henge is that monuments might go through phases of importance and neglect. For example, the Henge has Bronze Age pottery, thousands of years old, and medieval pottery, which is only hundreds of years old. And that indicates that the site was then reused at a later date for, well, something? We're not really sure. It's very interesting to consider how and why these sites might go through reuse, and why they might go through periods of neglect. It might be that the monument appears and disappears. It might be that the monument becomes accessible at certain times, or it might be that waxing and waning senses of faith can lead to the reuse or resurgence of a monument which was formerly neglected or even feared. Whatever kind of monument you are world building, the World Anvil Landmarks template is the perfect thing for creating it. You can mark down why they were created, what they're made of, and some tantalizing details about their history. And remember to add your monuments to your interactive maps too, to tantalize your players and your readers. Don't forget to like this video if it made you think, and subscribe for more world building content, World Anvil tutorials, World Anvil announcements, and make sure you click that bell so you get notified about our announcements the moment they come out. Alright, that's all from me, so grab your hammer and go world build! Monuments, please. So go on, adopt a giant stone man in your world building today. Hi, cat. Man-made man-made object. Hi, tiny cat. So my third takeaway. Hello. You gonna hang out with me? We got a cat now, apparently.